When she was 11 years old, Celia Keenan-Bolger auditioned for the part of Ruthie Jode in The Grapes of Wrath at the Hilberry Repertory Theater on the campus of Wayne State University. She was only beginning her interest in acting, and so she searched with her mom, Susie, for a good monologue. Growing up in the home of Susan and Rory Keenan-Bolger, her mom a public school teacher and union rep, and her dad a city planner, in the working-class neighborhood of Jefferson Chalmers, Michigan, outside of Detroit, their home was filled with a variety of progressive books and plays. But after much intense searching, this mother-daughter team didn't like any of the teenage monologues they uncovered in the plays, and instead came upon a novel, To Kill a Mockingbird. And more specifically, the monologue where a fast-thinking Scout Finch calls out a desperate farmer, Mr. Cunningham, who has arrived at the jailhouse with his white friends to murder Tom Robinson. It's a heartbreaking and prescient speech, and it was good enough to land her the coveted role of Ruthie Jode at the Hilberry Rep. And yesterday, she completed her 408th performance of that same monologue on Broadway in her Tony-winning role as the precocious and extraordinary voice of Harper Lee. And so, that's the superhero origin story of my incredible artist, activist friend, Celia Keenan-Bolger. But celebrating Celia means celebrating her family in a country where a history of ideals and activism gives us all hope that how we live and what we believe matters. Celia's grandfather, a special education teacher and neighborhood facilitator, William Keenan, moved his family of 7 children to Jefferson Chalmers, where they lived in one of the earliest integrated neighborhoods in the nation. When a black family moved onto their block and was burned out of their house, William Keenan took that family of 5 into his own home until they could repair the damage. Celia's mom became a socialist and union organizer. She participated in civil disobedience and was arrested protesting arms deployments during the Vietnam War. Celia's dad served in the Peace Corps in Panama, and her parents together raised 3 kids in public schools with the belief that we all need each other, that equality matters, and that an imperfect country needs work and effort as it struggles to be a better and more compassionate union. And Celia embodies all of these things. When it came to casting Scout Finch, there was never any choice because she was simply the only person who could help us learn so powerfully the lessons of justice the play demanded. Celia's deep compassion, her brave and outspoken strength in speaking out for all causes, and her amazing and rich life as an actor, activist, and mother to her own son, William, named for her grandfather, make for a life deserving of celebration by the NYCLU. But more than all of this, Celia is just a great, badass artist and actor. We have worked together steadily for over 14 years, and since I met her emerging from the University of Michigan, she has been one of my most cherished collaborators. I've never known an actor with a deeper soul and ability to touch something inside of all of us, whether in The Glass Menagerie, Spelling Bee, Peter and the Starcatcher, or now in Mockingbird. She is great and bristling actor, a fantastic dramaturg who has always seen her own part, but also somehow understands the larger part of the play and the world around it. And she's taught me how to live a better life infused with honesty, justice, and compassion, both on and off the stage. And so, under the beautiful gaze of her extraordinary fellow traveler in art and in activism, Michael Friedman, we celebrate the compassionate and profound work of the incredible, caring, life-affirming Celia Keenan-Bolger. I can think of no one more deserving to receive the inaugural Michael Friedman Freedom Award than our own dearest Celia.
I cannot even begin to tell you How much this honor means to me. Ever since I found out I was getting this award, I haven't been able to stop thinking about this cassette tape that was given to me when I was 6 years old by one of my mom's best friends, Charlene Firestone. And on one side of the cassette tape was the original Broadway cast recording of The Sound of Music. And on the other side was something called The Inheritance, which was a documentary about immigrants and working Americans' struggles to put down roots, form labor unions, survive wars, and create a new and better life for themselves and our union. And it occurs to me that this cassette tape was my first step in standing in front of you today, because while I was in love with the lonely goat herd and the sad sort of clanging from the clock in the hall, I was also fascinated by the voices and stories of the immigrants and this song that Judy Kuhn sang called Pass It On. I think the other reason that I can't stop thinking about this cassette tape is because when I met Donna Lieberman 12 years ago, she immediately reminded me of Charlene and my mother's friends who worked and parented and organized and protested and fought against the patriarchy. And when Donna told me that she had a daughter, Liana, and that Liana had created a concert for musicians and Broadway types to perform and raise money for the NYCLU, I immediately felt this sort of invisible thread sewing my family to theirs. And then 2 years later, after I met Donna, I got to work with the great Michael Friedman, and he is, to this day, probably the greatest embodiment of an artist and activist that I've ever known personally. Over the years, I watched him write songs and amplify voices of people I had barely even thought about. And again, I felt that thread extend itself to the Friedman family. And this has me thinking about these times that we're living in and how finding these families, whether they're the parents of the kids who go to school with my son William, or the mothers performing here tonight, Judy, Kelli, Laura, Liana, that finding the comfort of people who inspire and support and challenge us is one of the most important things that we can do right now, because I think maybe when our families connect, it's possible that these threads can extend far beyond ourselves and our city and our state and make a sort of artist, activist blanket that is so strong that even the families of the weak-minded, self-interested, corrupt Republican Congress will want to wrap themselves in it. And in doing this, we keep the legacy of Donna Lieberman and Carolyn Friedman and Susie Keenan moving forward. And when I reflect on Charlene giving me that cassette tape when I was 6 years old, it feels like a totemic gesture, because when we take young people to the theater or expose them to the Nazis in Germany and The Sound of Music, or a gay dancer from Buffalo in a chorus line, or a little girl trying to understand the racial politics of Make 'Em Alabama and To Kill a Mockingbird, their world gets bigger. And then when we expose them to protests and union meetings and Labor Day parades and a stadium of people listening to Nelson Mandela speak after he's been let out of prison, they can maybe integrate their empathy from the stories that they see on stage into action against injustice in their real life. The lyrics of that Judy Kuhn song started like this: freedom doesn't come like a bird on a wing, doesn't come down like the summer rain. Freedom is a hard-won thing. You've got to work for it, fight for it, day and night for it, and every generation's got to win it again. Pass it on to your children, mother. Pass it on to your children, brother. You've got to work for it, fight for it, day and night for it. Pass it on to your children.